Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a homemade pull-up bar that I made. By all means, I'm no professional fabricator. In fact, it's been about 25 years since I've done any sort of metalwork or fabrication, so of any magnitude at least. So this is kind of a first attempt. So I'm kind of actually embarrassed by the weld quality here. It turned out okay in the end, but it's certainly nothing to be proud of. This is also kind of a review of the Harbor Freight 80 amp welder that I'll show you. It's like a 80 or 90 buck welder at Harbor Freight, excuse me, so you can imagine the kind of weld quality that you're going to get out of that. Also, you're going to see that I mounted this rather on a brick veneer surface. I found out after I installed it there that does not meet code, or at least I was told that by a friend who's pretty knowledgeable. So I'm going to check that out. I'll probably end up needing to move that, so just keep that in mind. Guys, do me a big favor, please like and subscribe. Alright, this corner of the house is where I'm going to mount the pull-up bar. So it might be hard to tell on video, but I've got a 90-degree corner here that I'm going to span, and that's where we're going to place it here, so we'll see how it goes. Here are the tools and supplies I'll be using. So I've got a plate here. This is 1/4 inch steel. It's probably a little overkill. I wanted something a little bit thinner, but they didn't have it. It was 10 bucks for that at Lowe's. I'm going to cut this in half. Have 2 plates, 2 holes at the top, 2 holes at the bottom on each plate. And then I'm going to use this 5-foot piece of black pipe and cut it down, I think, to about 40 inches. For the pull-up bar itself, I've got a 3/16 drill bit, masonry bit here. I'll be using with these 1 1/4 inch concrete anchors. These are rated at 500 pounds each shear strength, the way I'll be mounting them, so it should be plenty of holding power. But that's kind of the setup we're going to use. I'll be cutting this at 45-degree angles and then welding it onto this plate. I'll probably show you some intermediate shots here in a bit. Okay, I made my first 2 cuts. I cut the plate in half. Not an awesome job, but good enough for what I wanted to do. And then I made my 45-degree cuts on the end of the bar. Turned out reasonably well. Took a grinder to clean them up a little bit, beveled them a little bit so they'll weld a little bit better. I couldn't decide between the reciprocating saw and the angle grinder. I was going to use this angle grinder blade, but I talked to a guy that I know that does a lot of metalworking. He said he thought I'd get better results with the reciprocating saw, so I had one of these carbide tip blades, Linux. It did pretty good. It took a few minutes to cut through it, but I think it did some damage to the blade, so I don't know how many cuts you'd get. Those blades aren't super cheap. So anyway, there's the cuts, and next up is to drill these plates for the holes for the screw mounts, and we'll get that done. All right, I just completed the holes. Turned out pretty well. I have a pretty cheap set of drill bits. I had to sharpen them. Surprisingly, only once. They probably need another sharpening after I got done with 8 holes, but it did go through the mild steel. Not too bad. It took probably probably a minute for each hole. So next up is welding. Here's the welding equipment I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using this cheap 80 amp welder from Harbor Freight Tools. Probably be using 6013 rods. I have clean new metal, so this should be okay. Typically I can make a little bit better weld. It's going to be interesting. I haven't done any welding in about 25 to 30 years, other than spot welds that I've done, or tack welds with this welder. I have done a few of those. That's primarily why I got it, was just occasionally I have some metal, 2 pieces of metal that I need to stick together, and I don't want to have to epoxy them or try to super glue them, so I knew that if I had a little cheap welder I could just do a tack weld or spot weld with it, and it's come in handy a few times. Been able to salvage some bolts that have broken off. You can just weld a new bolt to it, which is handy. Here's the little welding table makeshift that I've got set up. It's just a little portable table, and I've got some cement bricks here so I don't burn through anything. So we'll see how this goes. Alright, here's some of what the raw welds look like. Pretty bad. I know, that's horrible. That's actually with the 6011 rod, which I had better results with. I couldn't get it hot enough with the 80 amp welder. Cleaned up, it looks a lot better. It's still not near as good as it could look, but it just needs to support a pull-up for a person, so I think it'll be okay. I'll test it out first good. But anyway, that's before it's cleaned up. Pretty bad. Alright, here's that really ugly weld after I cleaned it up a little bit. It's quite a bit better. I think it'll hold. I think these rods have 60,000 pounds per square inch of tensile strength, so should be well above what we need. There's the top one after cleaning it up. Pretty ugly. Should look a lot better after painting. There's the finished product, all painted up. I used this Valspar primer for metal. It did pretty good. It's kind of just your generic industrial looking primer. So the weld's cleaned up reasonably okay. It's nothing to be proud of, but hopefully good enough. So we'll go out and mount it here in a little bit and see how it works. Okay, here's the finished product, all mounted and tested. I weigh about 200 pounds and I've done a few pull-ups on it. I ran up, I've got it mounted pretty high, and I ran up and jumped on it. And it'll flex a little bit, but it seems pretty sturdy. So there she is, all done. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Again, I know that placement of the pull-up bar is probably not up to code. I'm going to do some further checking into that, and I may have to move it or make some modifications to bring it up to code. So, hey, do me a big favor, please like and subscribe. Thanks so much.